I think almost everyone here, it's afternoon. This is Derek Melber, and on behalf of Manage Engine and the Active Directory Solutions team, I just want to extend a great thank you for all of you to attend this workshop, our first workshop on ADAudit Plus. I know that some of you have been attending workshops on AD Manager Plus presented by Vivin, which have been extremely successful. So we decided to port the context over to ADAudit Plus to make sure that every one of you that either has ADAudit Plus installed, the gurus of ADAudit Plus, as well as those of you that are looking at ADAudit Plus, have a much better understanding of what's going on with ADAudit Plus and how to set it up correctly. So without further ado, I'm just going to give a quick introduction of who I am, and then I want to jump into the information so that I can send you back to your day, and you can certainly have a great rest of your day. Let's see, I have a quick little question here. Let's see. No, I think we're good. Okay, so what we're going to do today is we're going to go over ADAudit Plus. I wouldn't call it the basics, but really the setup. To give you an idea of who I am, my name is Derek Melber, and I am an Active Directory MVP. I've been an MVP either in Active Directory or group policy now for, oh boy, I think a good 16 years, 15 years, something like that. And I am the technical evangelist for the AD Solutions team. And what that means is I get the opportunity to go around the world, also do presentations like this, work with all the other team members on the AD Solutions team to come up with solutions, ideas, and concepts that really help organizations be more efficient, be more secure, and just get a better handle on what's going on with Active Directory in your environment. So that's a little bit about me. And again, let's just jump into what I want to cover today. What I want to cover today is I want to cover some really essential setups for ADAudit Plus. For those of you that are just looking at ADAudit Plus, you may not have even downloaded it before. I want to give you some ideas on what you're up against, and I want to give you an idea of how to quickly get you the information that you need so that you can get forward. Because really the idea of ADAudit Plus is we want to make sure that we gather information. Just kind of as a brief overview of what ADAudit Plus does, you see here that I'm on the home page, and of course we have a very well-presented homepage with a dashboard, and the dashboard allows you to customize information that you want to see on an ongoing basis. So the dashboard is customizable. We're not going to go into that today, just trying to give you an idea of what the tool does. And really the tool, in my opinion, has two distinct pieces. The first piece of the tool, if we go over here to reports, we can look at compliance reports. So we have these different compliance areas, as you see here, SOX, HIPAA, PCI. And what we've done is we've broken down our reports into compliance areas. So what this gives an organization the ability to do is quickly generate compliance reports for your compliance team, whether that be security, whether that be auditors, whatever it is. So, you know, if we just go and look at maybe some information about what's happened in your organization. So here we see user management, modified, deleted, created, and not only do we see nice charts, we see the details. And so we can actually print this out. Every single one of our reports comes with the ability to print it out. So it's really easy to get the information that you need out of the system. Let's see, do I have, okay. So that's the first piece. So think of ADAudit Plus on one hand as a tool for auditors and security professionals needing reports. On the other hand, ADAudit Plus is an ideal solution for an Active Directory administrator. Now what do I mean by that? Well, what I mean by that is ADAudit Plus is designed around the idea that you can actually get reports generated in real time of things that are occurring. And not only reports, you can get alerts. Now, I have two different ADAudit Plus environments here, so we're going to be jumping back and forth because each of them have a little bit different configurations, which just like you in your environment, you're going to have a different configuration than me. But I just want to give you an idea of how things work. So here in this environment, I have some reports, and you will see that I have some custom reports, I have some new reports that aren't normally here, and if I pick on a report of something that's important to me, let's say admin groups and when they're modified, I can actually see over the last 6 months. Let's see if I can get some data here. So you will see that over the last whatever months, I can get how many groups have been modified, and then I get the details of those. Now, I can also associate alerts with these, so when something changes with a key security setting, I'm going to receive an email on that. So again, just kind of a 10,000-foot overview of what ADAudit Plus does. ADAudit Plus is excellent for compliance. It's also excellent for real-time alerting for administrators on when things change. So let's kind of start at the basics. What's required in the environment? Well, ADAudit Plus is a very thin application that can be either installed on a physical machine or even a virtual machine. So it doesn't really matter in your environment what you want to install ADAudit Plus on. Obviously, it just needs good connectivity. So you can go virtual, you can go physical, and of course, it runs on a Windows platform. So we suggest that you have a Windows server. The Windows server, in our opinion, it should not be the domain controller. We're kind of old school when it comes to normal segregation of duties and roles on servers, and we feel that ADAudit Plus should not be installed on a domain controller because the domain controller has enough things that it's responsible for. So we're going to have you install it either on Windows Server 2008, 2008 R2, or even if you want to bump it up to 2012, 2012 R2, certainly that's something that you can decide. So the installation, the download and the installation is actually very simple. Now, I'm going to assume that all of you have downloaded ADAudit Plus. If you, for some reason, haven't downloaded ADAudit Plus, just go to manageengine.com, go to Active Directory in the menus, and there you see auditing for Active Directory. You can download it. Literally takes 5 minutes to download. So once you have the product installed, you're either going to use the SQL that we have, which is a PostgreSQL server, or you can use an existing installation of SQL server in your environment. Either one of those work. And then you have to make decisions on how you're going to configure the product. Now, there's a lot of concern these days around least privilege. So with regard to least privilege, you obviously can just do a quick install of the product, and with the configuration of the product, you can just use an account that has domain admin credentials, a domain admins group, okay? Now, this of course is not least privilege, and you can get to least privilege. Now, in order for you to get to least privilege, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to set up the account that you're going to use for ADAudit Plus to have certain privileges in the environment, okay? The first privilege is it needs to have a user right for read access to the security logs. Now, I think I actually have this particular document open. Let's see if I have this one open right here. Yes, right here. So this is a document that you can get off of our website, and this is the privilege requirements for ADAudit Plus. And again, we'll be sending out the links for all of these things that I show you online so you can have a quick access to them. But here you can see to manage the auditing and the security log privileges, you need to go into the user rights and set up this particular user right, okay? So that's first and foremost. Now, second thing that you need, if you have a 2003 or greater domain controller, which I'm sure most of you have, is there is a new event log readers group. Okay, it's part of the built-in containers you see here, and you need to make the user a member of that group. Okay, those are two configurations. The next one is actually only if you have clusters. So if you have clusters, then you need to set up DCOM and WMI, and we give you the details around that. So at this point, you basically have a user right and you have a group membership for the user that's going to be used inside of ADAudit Plus. Okay. Number 4 is also an option if you were going to use ADAudit Plus's ability to create the group policy objects needed for setting up auditing on your domain controllers. And we're going to get to that in a minute. Okay, we're just going over the basics. So if you choose to set this up manually, which I'm going to show you in detail how to do, you do not have to have the user part of the group policy creator owner. Now, why am I kind of telling you the limits? Well, the reason I want to tell you the limits is some organizations, which is correctly so, is trying to create a least privilege environment. If I give the user the service account that's running ADAudit Plus group policy creator owner and only needs it to create one GPO, well, now it has it forever. So you can either put it in, create the GPOs with the tool, or never put the service account in and just do it manually. Okay, so 2 required settings so far. One is a user right, one is a group membership. And then the 5th one here is really for when you have member servers. ADAudit Plus can actually go beyond just domain controllers. I can actually look at servers and I can look at workstations. So if you have servers and workstations, you need to have the service account as a member of the local administrators group on all those machines so it can gain access to the security log. Okay? So those are the basic requirements for the user account that is being used inside of ADAudit Plus. Okay? Now, you're going to actually leverage this particular account by going in and you're going to be setting up the account inside of the tool. So inside of the tool, you're going to have to go in and you're going to have to set up this particular account when you set up the tool. Okay? So again, you can either use kind of the bigger configurations or you can actually drill down and look at the lower configurations, again, depending on how you want to set up the environment. Now, what about the installation requirements? Obviously, you're going to have to set up whatever user account that you need, but you also have to have installation requirements. Now, we have a document online. I'm going to show you that document right here. And that document online kind of goes through all of the requirements regarding the basic installation. So in our quick start guide, you can go to online. It kind of goes through all the details regarding ADAudit Plus, and here you have some of the hardware requirements. So these are minimums, right? I mean, the P4 1.5 gigahertz, you may not even have any servers that low anymore, but these are the basics, okay? So the guide here is going to help you choose what server. Now, if some of you already have ADAudit Plus installed and you're witnessing some lag time, you're witnessing some just high resource utilization on those servers, you may want to look at some of these hardware requirements. Now, our best practice requirements is that you have a 64-bit installation of Windows. Okay? Our best practice recommendation is you don't use a 32-bit Windows, use 64-bit. Okay? Also, you need an SSD hard drive. We want to get quick access, reads and writes out of that database as it gathers information and you run reports. So if we kind of go back to the tool, ADAudit Plus, and I click on a report, whatever I actually generate a report on here, it's pulling that information out of the database that's on the hard drive. So if I go in here and I want to look at information, I want this information to be pulled up quickly. If I have an old kind of outdated hard drive, it's going to take longer to pull that information off. So again, SSD hard drive, we're going to recommend 2 gigahertz or more with the processor. Of course, the more memory, the better. So throw 16, throw 32, throw as much memory as you can at your particular server. That's going to give you better throughput, especially if you have your ADAudit Plus running with other services on that server. You're going to want to share the load on those servers. Now, also in this documentation that I have online for you right here, we actually have kind of a cool little breakdown of how many users you have and how much disk space you need. So again, this is just a guesstimate. I don't know how much activity you're going to have in Active Directory. But again, you're going to want to be probably here in the 40 gigs or 40 gigs or more with regard to your hard drive space of what you're going to want for your database. Okay? So, as a repeat, best practice recommendations, 64-bit operating system, SSD hard drive with 40 gigs of spare disk space, a non-domain controller, and 2 gigahertz or better for your processor. That is going to give you a rock-solid foundation for ADAudit Plus. Okay? So, what we've covered so far, the user that's going to be running ADAudit Plus, I've given you least privilege suggestions. We've given you best practices around how to set up the hardware on what's going to be utilized by ADAudit Plus, and I've given you some of those links. Okay? Now, let's move on and get into a little bit deeper configuration. In order for ADAudit Plus to work, you have to establish auditing of Active Directory changes on your domain controllers. Okay? Now, let me show you 2 different environments here. In this particular environment, I have 1 domain controller. This is my portable environment that I use when I go around the world giving presentations. We also have online another environment, which I'm going to show you here, if I can figure out my brain and what I'm looking for here. And in this environment, you will see over here in my domain settings, I have 2 domain controllers. Now, this is actually an environment that we utilize as a team to kind of show you the tools, ins and outs. You see ADAudit Plus here, and this is online. So this gives you an idea of how fast the tool is going to run when you're working remotely, which is extremely important for many organizations, for many IT departments. We're going to remotely connect to this so we can gain access. Okay? In order for ADAudit Plus to work, it is going to go into the domain controllers that you configure and pull events out of the security log on those domain controllers. So if I go back to my environment here and I go to my event viewer here is set up such that I can have just around 150,000 events. ADAudit Plus is pulling the events from this security log, putting it in its own database, and then when you run reports here in ADAudit Plus, it pulls those reports from the local database. Okay? So it is not pulling the information from all your domain controllers when you go into these reports. The information has already been gathered. All right? So this is an extremely important part of the tool. The tool runs reports off of its own database, not in real time from the servers. Why is that important? That's important because you may have a tremendous amount of changes occurring on a domain controller in a 5-minute period. If you run a report that is pulling information from the security log in real time, when you hit reports, you may miss some information. So we don't want you to miss information. So we pull the information out of the security logs, put it in our database so it's available. Well, in order to get your event viewer here, the security log, to fill up, you have to set up auditing. Now, how do you set up auditing? Auditing is set up in group policy. Okay, so I'm going to go over here to my group policy management. I'm going to go to, of course, my domain. This is the GPO where I have auditing set up. I'm going to edit the GPO, and under policies, Windows settings, security settings, local policies, audit policy, this is where I have my audit policy set up. Now, don't frantically write down everything here because I don't want you to do that. We have all of this documented for you online. Okay? So, over here, in this document, which is right here, we have all the details that you need depending on what you want to track. Okay? So if you want to track OU, GPO user groups, you go set up these settings. If you want to track other things, you have to set up other settings. Okay? So the document is here for you because you can see the document's pretty lengthy and you have to set up some different things. Going through the document will take you about 10 minutes. All right? So in summary, when you go through the document, you are going to determine which audit policy settings you want to set up, and you're going to set them. Now, you can either set them at the domain level, which you see I have mine linked to the domain, or if I go over to my other environment, which is right here, okay? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little bit of hopping around, so I'm going to tell you where I'm at when I get there, okay? So if I go into here, this is my online server. I'm going to go into group policy from here, and then from group policy from here, you will see that I do not have a GPO linked to the domain. My GPO here is linked to my domain controllers, and inside of here is where I have my audit policy set up. So here, my advanced audit policy is set up under a GPO linked to the domain controllers OU. Why is there a difference? Well, if I set up a GPO linked to the domain, it's going to affect every computer in the enterprise. If I link it to the domain controllers, only the domain controllers will be affected. If I only want to look at Active Directory changes, the domain controllers OU is perfect. If I want to go above that, I want to do it at the domain level. Notice the differences, okay? Now, inside of the audit policy, which will go back here again, so inside of the audit policy, in your group policy object, you define what you want to track. These settings at this location in group policy are legacy settings. These settings will affect Windows 2000 all the way through Windows Server 2012 R2. They're legacy because these settings have been around really since Windows NT. But there are new settings. The new settings are called Advanced Audit Policy Settings. Now, here you will notice that I'm under my Group Policy Object, Computer Policies, Security, Audit Policy. But if I go down here in the GPO to Advanced Auditing, I have more audit policies. These are completely different. And you will notice that I have a different group of settings here. These are referred to as Advanced Audit Policy Settings. These settings only affect Windows Server 2008 R2 and greater. Let me repeat that. Advanced Audit Policy can only affect Windows Server 2008 R2 domain controllers and greater. So we recommend if you have newer operating systems for your domain controllers, you set up the Advanced Audit Policy. If you have older domain controllers, you're going to have to use the normal audit policy. Okay? Now, all of the settings for either one of them are in that document that I'm going to send you the link for. So you don't have to worry about the details. Because you'll notice here I've configured quite a few things in here to make sure I'm tracking everything that I want. But I want you to think about something. If you set up both audit policy and advanced audit policy like I have here, which one wins? Well, you have to think about how Microsoft works. Microsoft works in a world that they just want things to function. So they are going to ensure that the older settings work no matter what, even if you have the newer settings there. If you want the newer settings to function, again, this is in the document that I'm going to send you the link to, you also have to go into your administrative not administrative templates, your security options. And right here in right 2 under audit policy, security options, you have force audit policy subcategory settings to override audit policy. You'll notice that I have that enabled. This says that the advanced audit policy will win an audit policy will be ignored on this machine. You will notice that it requires Vista 2008 or later. Okay? So if you want to use advanced audit policy, which we recommend, you're going to also have to set this security setting. So you're going to have a multitude of settings, right? Well, how do you know what you have now? Because you could have different group policy objects that are configuring things. So how do you know? Well, as many of us have been working with Microsoft in the past, we know that not every tool ports to the new environment. And if you go to RSOP, you go to secpol.msc, you're going to find that not everything reports correctly. For example, I'm going to come down here and I'm going to go to RSOP, rsop.msc. And RSOP is going to give me a result and setup policy. And when I come under Windows settings, security settings, I don't even have advanced audit policy, okay? So this is where Microsoft makes decisions on what tools they're going to bring forward and what tools they're going to stop. This is going to be a shock to most of you. rsop.msc is no longer supported by Microsoft and hasn't for years, okay? So RSOP is not the tool that Microsoft would recommend. In order for you to verify what settings you have, you are going to go into the Group Policy Management Console, the Group Policy Results, and you are going to run the Group Policy Results Wizard. You're going to select the computer, so you can do this remotely. You're going to select the user, which in this case doesn't even matter because these are computer settings. And you are going to generate a report, and in that report you can look to see what the current settings are and which GPO is setting them. This is the correct way to verify the audit policy and or advanced audit policy settings that you have in place. So you will see that here's my advanced audit policy, and then if I go under my security options, you will see that I have the ability for the audit policy subcategories which are enabled. So this is a way for me to verify that my settings are in place. Okay? Hopefully all that makes sense. As a quick recap, set up audit policy or set up advanced audit policy with this setting in security options. To verify all of your domain controllers one by one, you're going to use the group policy results in the GPMC to do that. Okay? All right. At this point, once we have set up the audit policy, if you go into Active Directory users and computers, right? I come over here to Active Directory users and computers, and I make modifications in Active Directory. You will not see very much show up in the security log because you're not completed with the configuration. The audit policy in group policy is only one piece of the overall configurations that you need to make for your environment. The other configurations you need to make are actually part of the SACL, the Security Access Control List. Okay? Again, and I'm going to show you here in the document, no smoke, no mirrors. I want you to make sure you get all this. In this SACL for AD objects, this actually goes through and tells you exactly what to set up for the SACL. Okay? Let me show you what that looks like. Here inside of Active Directory users and computers, you go to the domain node, properties, security, advanced, auditing. This is the SACL, the System Access Control List. And inside of here, you follow the directions on that online document for configuring the Everyone group in any access to any of these objects. This is another 10 minutes. It's extremely quick, okay? Even if you're using the advanced audit policy, the same settings for the SACL will be in place, all right? Now, how do you verify that these SACL settings are there? Well, if you go under here, it gets a little complicated to make sure that things are set up correctly. So what you have the option to do is you have the option to go in and make sure that these settings are in place by running the Active Directory user computers, security, advanced, auditing, and you get this information. You're going to have to go in here and select this edit option to look at the details, okay? So now that we have the GPO set up for auditing or advanced auditing, and we have the SACL set up, we now just go into Event Viewer, Security Log, and this is the information. If I go to my online version, which I think is pretty awesome to do, let's see, let me get back to that. It is here. If I go back to here and I go to my Event Viewer and I go to my Security Log, you will see that I don't have 150,000 entries. Here I have 650,000 entries. I just made my log size a little bit bigger, okay? Now that we have everything set up, we now need to set up ADAudit Plus. So how do we make sure that we get ADAudit Plus set up properly? Well, first and foremost, we need to go in and we need to configure the domain controllers, okay? So I'm going to come back here to ADAudit Plus. Once it's installed, you then go to your domain settings, okay? Now, you can either select Add Domain Controller and click to discover DCs, which I've already done. And if for some crazy reason that doesn't work, which in most cases it's because of DNS. DNS is not set up correctly. It could also be a firewall. It could be a remote connection issue. We all understand that not everything is discoverable through a click. If you do not have all of your DCs discovered through this Add Domain Controllers option, you just want to type them in and add them in individually. I always get the question, if I have 10 domain controllers, do I need to add all 10? Yes, you do. You need to have all 10 in here because you need to ensure that no matter where the change occurs on your domain controllers, you have that information being collected. If the domain controller isn't listed here, it won't be collected, the events. So you need to make sure that you list them all here, okay? So here online I have 2 domain controllers in my domain, and the one that I have here locally that I use as I travel the world, if I go to my domain settings here, I only have 1. If I go into Active Directory users and computers to my domain controllers, you will see that I have 1 DC here. This one is a bogus DC. This one is not online, okay? This also gives you an opportunity to do cleanup. So yes, ADAudit Plus isn't really the tool to perform the cleanup. AD Manager Plus is, which many of you have seen the workshop on that. But this is an opportunity for you to make sure that DCs that are listed here are actually active and ready to go. This 5DC5 is one that I created, and it's just an object in Active Directory, but it's not a physical machine, okay? So once we have our domain controllers added into ADAudit Plus through the domain settings option, we need to set the fetch interval. Now, for years, ADAudit Plus had a fetch interval of about 15 minutes. And if you think about it from an administrative standpoint, you like that because you don't want an application like ADAudit Plus constantly contacting your domain controller asking for information in real time. But in this case we do, and let me walk you through this. If you use 15 minutes, your reports are not real time. They could be 15 minutes off. In a security environment, that's not very good. So what we did is we tied into a Microsoft API that constantly looks for changes in the security log, and if there are changes, the API helps us send information to our database. So we are not the ones constantly asking the domain controller. The domain controller is working with us to make this something that is efficient. So if you go here, you can see that you can either do a schedule or real time. Our recommendation is real time. Because what's going to happen is if you have a lot of modifications in a 15-minute period, that's going to bottle up your network more than real time. Real time is just bits and pieces as it goes through. Now, I want to kind of give you some ideas of how this works. So here in my environment, I have, let's say I want to go, let's go to IT. And I want to modify a group. So I'm not going to go to IT. We'll go to that in just a minute. So we're going to go here to my schema admins, okay? If schema admins group changes membership, right? Let's say that someone is added to it and I hit apply. Watch how quick ADAudit Plus recognizes this change. You will notice right here that Patsy already is on my alert. And if I go to the report regarding that, which is this report for modified admin groups, in the last 30 days, you're going to see that Patsy was added to the schema admins group. Okay? This is the type of thing that real time gets you. Now I'm going to go back to the beginning of when we talked about what ADAudit Plus does. ADAudit Plus works on both sides of the aisle. It works not only for compliance, but it also works for administrators to know when things change. So I want you to just think about this for a minute. You can set up reports like this report that I have here for modified admin groups and set up alerts so that when anything changes regarding that, you can get an alert in the dashboard. You can also get an email sent to you. That's the power of ADAudit Plus, but you have to have it configured correctly, okay? So make sure all your domain controllers are listed under your domain settings. Make sure you're set up for real time, and you're good to go. Now, one more piece is you want to make sure that ADAudit Plus is set up as a service. Now, when I first got involved with ADAudit Plus, AD Manager Plus, I wasn't running them as services, and every time that I would reboot a server or have to do something with services, I'd have to go in and start it. And I don't want to do that. I don't want you to do that. This is something that is so important. You need to make sure that the system is constantly set up properly. Now, if you go to the Quick Start Guide, again, I'll show you where that Quick Start Guide is, and you go to the bottom here, there's a section on running as a service. And the section on running as a service, somewhere in here, I apologize for my sending you across, right here. You're going to run this install ntservice.bat. Okay? It's under the bin folder in the installation of ADAudit Plus. Once you have run that, now when you go and you look at your services.msc, you are going to have ADAudit Plus running as a service. And you want to right-click and just configure the account that you configured at the very beginning of this as the log-on account. This is the account that needs the group membership, that needs the user rights. See how it's all tying together now? So make sure you're running ADAudit Plus as a service, and you want to make sure that you go in, configure the right account with the least privileges, and now you have the most secure environment for ADAudit Plus gathering information off of your domain controllers. Now I often get the question, well, what if for some reason ADAudit Plus stops gathering information from one of the domain controllers? How do I deal with that? Well, under the admin tab, we have an alert me option. And you'll notice that the alert me is if it's unable to gather information from the security logs. So all you do is you configure an address, put in the email, and now ADAudit Plus will email you immediately if it cannot gather information from the security logs. This is critical, especially when you're relying on the tool to be for compliance regulations, to deal with security regulations, okay? So I highly recommend these are base configurations that you go in and set up the alert me to make sure that you get notified. You also have to be concerned over time on whether or not the disk space is getting low, because we're busy as admins. So you get to set the threshold depending on how much hard drive space you have allocated for the server and for ADAudit Plus, so that if it gets down to a particular point, you're also going to be alerted for that. Okay? You can have the alert, which will show up here in the home page, or you can actually email yourself something that's going on. Okay? So what have we talked about in this kind of introductory ADAudit Plus? We want to make sure that you have the tool set up properly. So what we've covered is we covered the base configurations, the base hardware requirements, and the user account is for the service account, what the minimum privileges are for that account. Okay? It's actually not that much. Then we went in and we talked about the audit policy and the advanced audit policy. Inside of the audit policy, which is here, just the audit policy can be set up, or if you use the advanced audit policy, you also have to make sure that you set up this one setting so that subcategory settings work instead of the normal audit policy. So we covered those. We also talked about how to verify that information. And the verification of the information is extremely important to make sure you know what you're looking at. Then we went in and talked about configuring ADAudit Plus itself. We went to the domain settings. We made sure that all the domain controllers were there. We used the wizard. Okay. Also, we set it to real time to make sure that we're gathering the correct information in real time from your domain controllers. Finally, we wanted to make sure that we were being told by alerts if disk space was getting low or if for some reason we stopped collecting the information. Once you have all of these settings in place, now you're set. Literally from download to configuration, it can take less than 30 minutes. But we want to make sure that you have everything set up properly. Now, what we're going to do after this workshop is I'm going to be sending you links to the Quick Start Guide, the configuration of the SACL, as well as I'm going to be sending you, I know I have one more here, the required privileges for the accounts, because we just want this to be easy for you, okay? So that concludes at least where we have at this point. Oh, there's a question about a video. We actually have a dedicated site to not only what we're going to do for ADAudit Plus, but what we've done for AD Manager Plus. We're also going to do it for AD Self-Service Plus. So we're going to have videos, and we're going to be sending these out to you in the next couple of days to make sure that you have all of this information. Okay? So I think if Karthik doesn't chime in here, I think he's answered all the questions. You know, I want to thank each and every one of you. Just to kind of give you an idea of what's coming up, we do have over the next 3 weeks 3 more workshops. They will be on Thursdays at the same time. So each Thursday over the next 3 weeks, we will have these workshops all about ADAudit Plus. We do have video recordings for AD Manager Plus, what's occurred, and I know that Vivian is still going through AD Manager Plus, and we'll be sending these documents. We also have some webinars. If you go to our particular website, you can sign up for the webinars. I think there's 1 or 2 in the next 3 weeks set up for Tuesdays over security hardening and also some self-service information. Those will be on Tuesdays. I think those are also at 11 o'clock Pacific time. So if you want any information on those and you haven't got an email, please let us know. With that, you know, I just want to thank each and every one of you for your time. Oh, I will mention one more thing. Starting in August, we have 4 cities where we're going to do 4 seminars. So I will be there live giving presentations. Those presentations really aren't knee-deep in the tools like these are. Those are more general information, problem solution type things will be in Los Angeles. And if I go to my handy dandy calendar here, I can tell you the exact dates. We will be in Los Angeles the 16th of August. We will be in San Francisco the 18th, and then we will be in I think it's Dallas and Chicago the 23rd and 25th. So we will be live in a city hopefully near you. If you're in one of those cities, please come join us. I'd love to see you, shake your hand, sit down and talk to you about Active Directory for a while. That would be awesome. So with that, we're going to conclude the workshop. We will be sending you out links. We'll be sending you out the video link, and if your question wasn't answered, we will be sending you those questions as we get to them. So with that, we're going to conclude the workshop. I'm going to let you get back to work. Hopefully some of you are getting off work soon. Enjoy the rest of your day at work and at home. Travel safe, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you very much.